And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Jonathan Steele. Jonathan, thank you for spending some time with me today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, you are welcome. So Jonathan is a man of many talents and passions. He's an attorney. He helps business owners with cybersecurity protection, so you can protect your business primarily, but that also rolls over into your family, which is his other passion because he's a family law attorney with estates and things. And so we're going to kind of dive into both of those areas around protecting your business and your family. So, Jonathan, you've got an interesting background. Very cool what you do. Tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you do today?
It's a good question. So I'll try to give you a good answer. When
Yeah.
I was 16 years old, I started clerking for a divorce lawyer in Chicago, and I clerked throughout the summers of high school. I clerked throughout the summers of college, and I clerked all throughout law school. So I sort of latched on to him, and that's how I landed at Bierman as a family law attorney. And then, I've sort of always been a privacy geek. I've always been interested in cybersecurity to some level. And then when COVID hit and some people went down some rabbit holes of learning how to bake bread or watching Tiger King, I went down a different one that I've yet to find the bottom of, which is delving deeper into cybersecurity and privacy. So I obtained some certifications. I listened to countless podcasts, watched YouTube videos. I read all about it, and I've learned quite a bit along the way.
Fascinating. So, all right, let's dive in there because cybersecurity, for us novices, I guess give us a really layman's definition and who really is at risk with this thing. What is it and who's at risk?
So cybersecurity is just a way of protecting your digital life, your digital existence, your digital footprint, protecting your online identity, your bank accounts online, all of your email accounts, anything that you access via a computer or a mobile device. Your cybersecurity is your first line of defense in protecting those services. Who's at risk? Everybody that uses any of those services, and that's just growing as the days go on. The risk is getting more prevalent and more severe.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's funny. Funny we're having this conversation. So we got a letter in the mail 2 or 3 or 4 days ago. I don't know, from some big company that we would all know. And it says, hey, we had a breach. And I think that's cybersecurity language, right? We had a breach, a data breach. And the bad guys came in and they got some information and here's what they got, but nothing else happened. And we looked, my wife being the detailed one, she's like, we got the letter today. It happened 18 months ago, according to the record. And she's like, why are you sending me this now? So, I mean, what's done is done, right? I'm guessing, is that what you're talking? I mean, that's one example of cyber security breakdown, I guess, right?
That's one of the symptoms of a cybersecurity problem. And to your point about it being 18 months later, nowadays the government has put forth some regulations that limit how long a company has to actually let you know that your data has been leaked.
That's insane.
So we're getting better about that as a country, but yeah, that's a symptom of the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. So let's talk about business owners because that's usually my audience. And I mean, they're family people too. So we've got families. Cybersecurity around a small business, whether you're local, national, internet, doesn't matter. Talk about some of the, I guess, areas that business owners should be thinking about and considering because my gut is a lot of small business owners just don't even think about cybersecurity. Is that fair?
It's fair. And I think some of the hurdle for a small business owner is it seems like it's complicated. It seems like it's an expense that can be avoided by using something like Gmail or an Outlook, or a OneDrive or a Google Drive. And it doesn't have to be either. It doesn't have to be complicated and it doesn't have to be expensive. There are free options that are better. There are some options that may not be free, but they're not particularly expensive that are better. So one example that I would give you would be email. As I mentioned, some small businesses find themselves using Gmail or Google Workspace as their email provider. And from a security perspective, Gmail's great. They have good two-factor authentication. They have great security. But from a privacy perspective, they leave much to be desired. They they openly admit to scanning your emails. And so, to the extent you have any sort of confidential information in your business, it's confidential to you, the recipient of your email, and Google.
Got it.
And there's a misconception that your emails are encrypted because they're encrypted in transit and they are encrypted at rest when they're in your Gmail inbox. The problem, though, is that Google has the keys to your encryption, and so they can really do with it what they want. So, email is an area where small businesses can make improvements. Internal messaging is another. A lot of small businesses use Slack or they use Teams. And there are free and more privacy respecting and better secure options like Signal that a company can transition to. And then cloud storage would be another great option. So a lot of companies are using Google Drive or they're using OneDrive, which again, from a security perspective, it's fine. All of your data is encrypted at rest. But the problem then is that, again, whether it's Microsoft or Google, they have the encryption keys. And so what you're storing, you're really relying on both of those companies to not access your data. And all it takes is one nefarious actor at either of those companies or just a data breach. If your data is leaked by Google or by Microsoft, it could be at risk. Whereas if you're using end-to-end encrypted services like Proton Mail, Tutanota for your email or for your cloud storage, they can't leak what they don't have. So because they don't have the keys to decrypt your data, they can't leak it in the event of a data breach. They can't access it, even if they wanted to. They can't turn it over in the event they get a subpoena. So I would encourage small business owners to move towards end-to-end encrypted services and not look back.
That's fascinating there because yeah, everybody uses Gmail, I think, and Outlook and Teams, um, and it's fascinating because these breaches, from the outside perspective, we're like, how does this happen? But like you said, it could be one person inside one of those organizations, or I'm sure there's like this big cohort of bad guys out there who are just always trying to dip into whether it's Google or Microsoft or banks, right? They're always probably trying to get in. Is that? I mean, is there this consortium out there of bad guys trying to get in to get data to sell it? Is that the game?
It can be, with respect to like Google scanning your emails, some of that is just a matter of marketing. So, when the product is free, and I'm using that term loosely because, there's that expression that if the product is free, then who actually is the product? So with Google, it's you.
Yeah.
You are the product, your data is the product. And so they're scanning your emails so that they can market to you, so that they can build a profile on you, so that they can know just about everything about you. And it's not so much whether or not you're sending emails that you consider to be top secret. It's just, you know, based only on, travel receipts, food delivery order receipts, anything that just piles up in your Google inbox over the course of a decade can be used to just build a very comprehensive marketing profile on you. And that's big tech. And, Microsoft does it, Google does it, Apple to a lesser extent. And it can be avoided. But yeah, there also is the nefarious actors out there, the hackers that also like to use your data for arguably worse purposes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when a business is has a cybersecurity attack, they've had their credit cards stolen. We had one client that he couldn't place book orders because every time he got a new credit card, it got stolen or something happened. And this happened like 6 or 7 times, and so he ended up going a totally different direction, right? But that impacted his business, my business. It impacted his family as well. So let's talk about some of those impacts. Because I don't think people think about the emotional turmoil, the time that it can take if you're not properly protected on the business front, how that can play into family. And then let's talk a little bit about family law aspects as well. So how do those things impact, I guess, the emotions and the time when something happens from a privacy breach of some nature?
Yeah, so once that breach happens or once a hack happens, it's too late. Your data's out there, your data's been leaked, the damage is done and is only going to continue to be done. And there are there's an emotional toll to it. There's anxiety that comes along with your data being leaked. And once your data hits the dark web and starts getting sold to various data mining companies or hackers, the damages just keep snowballing. And so, when identities are stolen and credit card accounts are opened, lines of credit are opened in your name, the damages just keep piling up. And then it's a matter of not only financial damages, but time, as you mentioned, is a huge factor there. Trying to unravel that mess, trying to mitigate some of the harm that has been done, trying to track down all of the harm that's being done, and cut off at future access. So, how does it play into your family as well? You have a number of pieces of personally identifiable information that should be coveted, that should be protected. Perhaps the most sensitive of which is your social security number. If something like that is leaked, or somehow exposed on the dark web, the effects of that are great. They can affect your family. They can affect the physical safety of yourself and your family. There are more data brokers popping up every single day that are not only mining your personal information, but they're selling it for as little as $1. Which is why if you Google your name, one of the first few things that's going to pop up is Spokio or other data brokers that are selling your home address, your cell phone number, your email address, all of your acquaintances, your family members. And that just makes you an easier target for phishing and other hacks. And it also jeopardizes the physical safety of your family. So, being a divorce lawyer where we don't make people happy all the time by trade, having my personal information accessible on the internet is a concern to me. Having my home address accessible on the internet is a concern to me. And it jeopardizes the safety of not only myself, but my family, my kids. So, it's a growing concern that
Yeah.
needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. Wow. Now, and as you deal with, and this is a dare I say, an ignorant question, but that's why I love what I do here because I can ask these questions, right? So, as a family law attorney, do you deal with, um, I'm going to say estates. I'm not even sure if that's the right thing. Is there a protection that a business owner should have between the business and their family, outside of an LLC? I would assume most businesses have that. But is there another level of protection around this whole cybersecurity thing that if my business accounts get hacked, how does that translate into my family finances outside of just the stress and all of that? Does that make sense?
An LLC is really the best way of protecting your personal finances from your business dealings. Whether it's an LLC or another form of corporate structure, as long as you're following the corporate formalities and not, intermingling your personal finances or using your company as your piggy bank. In the event there's a breach, or your company is exposed or sued for whatever reason, your personal finances, those of your family, should be relatively safe. Um, One thing that I would recommend to listeners is to consider putting the title of their homes in a land trust. That offers some privacy protection. It doesn't really offer liability protection, although, if you're being sued as a corporation, your home should be off limits in most situations. But because most people own their homes titled to themselves, it makes it relatively easy to discover your home address. Whereas if it's owned by a land trust, when you search the Recorder of Deeds website in the county that you live in, or you search Google, the owner of your home is land trust number 4445122, as opposed to your name. So it gives you that layer of protection, that layer of anonymity.
Okay, so that's a little different than having. I think our house is in the trust of Michael and Jill Dillon, I think, or something like that. So what you're saying is a little different than that because that would be easy to find who owns my house, right? Because it's the trust of, oh, guess what, right? Versus doing it the way you did, which is an unknown number or whatever, right?
It's similar, but if it's a land trust, it doesn't have a name attached to it. You're just the beneficiary of the land trust, and that's not publicly accessible information. The land trust would be administered by a fiduciary, a financial institution like a bank, or, in here in Chicago, Chicago Title and Trust will hold the land trust and they will administer it. And there's really no way for a creditor or a bad actor to see who is the beneficiary of the land trust, who really owns it at the end of the day, beyond just the trust number.
Okay. That's fascinating. So you learned something. I learned something here. My listeners learned something here because you're the first one I've ever heard talk about land trust and putting your house in that name. So that's very cool. Thank you for that. What are some besides the email thing? Talk about precautions. I guess business owners should be taking then um, around the whole cybersecurity issue. Whether you've got one employee or 1,001 employees, what are some basic things they need to be looking at besides the email thing that you mentioned, which was really helpful?
Yeah, the most prevalent forms of cyber attacks nowadays is phishing and business email compromise. So with phishing, you have to really just be cautious about links that you're clicking, checking who the sender is of an email that you may or may not have expected, verifying before you click anything, verifying before you're sending any money, certainly anywhere, and verifying in a different form of communication. So if you're getting an email, maybe you're verifying the sender by a phone call. And always be cautious of, any sort of urgency. Phishing attacks, they prey on your psychological condition. It's somebody creating a sense of urgency that you have to act now or bad things will happen. You have to send money now or bad things will happen. Just pause, take a moment to think about it, maybe get up, walk away from your computer, come back to it and see, is that email legitimate and does it actually warrant your attention? And then, depending on how many employees you have as a company, the weakest link is always going to be humans. And so you need to train your staff, you need to train them about phishing, and do the best you can in terms of getting them to not click links, and do the best you can in terms of setting up your own email security so that phishing emails don't even make their way into the inbox of your employees so that they can be clicked. And then similar precautions with respect to business email compromise. Um, you know, as a law firm, I get emails that look like they're from the managing partner, maybe once a week. But when you look at the actual sender address, it's not him. And it's something that we are trained pretty regularly by the firm's IT department to look for those things. And it's just a matter of training your employees. And there are certain email providers that allow you to set up protections that will ward off those emails so that they end up in spam or that they don't get delivered at all. And that's helpful because at the end of the day, as I mentioned, the humans are the weakest link there. And sometimes people, they get fatigued to cybersecurity. They, if you're a lawyer, if you're a banker, depending on your profession, you may have to make split-second decisions pretty often throughout the day. And so it's easy to just fall victim to clicking the wrong link, opening the wrong email, responding to something you shouldn't respond to. So a lot of it just comes down to training and slowing down as much as possible to evaluate the emails that are coming in.
Yeah, no, that's really good. A phrase that I don't even know where I found it years ago, but it served me in lots of areas of life is when in doubt, don't. And I think what you're just saying is that if you get an email or something and if the flag in your gut goes up for some reason, stop. Do what I say, stop, get up, walk around, call somebody else. My wife had a lady from church, an elderly lady, who was about ready to go to the bank and get money out to give it to somebody from an email or a phone call or something. And my wife's like, no, don't do that. Just you've got to educate not only yourselves and your family, but the older generation, because it's not only email based, but it can be phone as well. It's all of this security stuff that impacts our businesses, our families. And Jonathan, you do a great job. Thank you. I appreciate you being here and what you do. How does somebody who's been listening to this? I'm sure you've scratched a few itches. How do they find out more about you and what you do? I know you've got a company that you run in addition to your law and things, but talk about how does somebody reach out to you and start learning more about maybe the cybersecurity thing?
There'd be two websites that I would point people to depending on, how they want to get a hold of me and what kind of information I can provide to you. So I have steelfamlaw.com that has all of my contact information. It's very easy to get a hold of me. It's got all of my social media handles and everything that you can imagine. Or steelfortress.com is my privacy and cybersecurity consulting firm that also has contact information for me, contact forms. So either of those websites, you're going to land in my inbox, and I'm happy to help out and offer any sort of guidance that I can to any of your listeners that have questions related to anything, cybersecurity, privacy, law, anything I can answer for people, I'm happy to do.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. I'm going to grab those, and I'm going to have those in the show notes so that if you're listening to this in the car or wherever, and you need to reach out to Jonathan, learn more about this cybersecurity, because it's probably more dangerous than most of us think it is, and you need to take some precautions. And I'm sure a conversation with Jonathan will really open some eyes and help you protect your business and your family. So, Jonathan, thank you for what you do. And thanks for being my guest here on Expert Speak.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.